Think about a belief you changed recently, just, a small one.
Right.
Maybe you read an article last Tuesday, and the way you understood a really specific niche topic just shifted slightly.
Yeah, you didn't, like, announce it to the world or anything.
Exactly. You probably didn't even notice the exact moment your brain rewired itself.
Yeah.
But the you who woke up today is not perfectly identical to the you from last week.
Yeah, oh, absolutely not.
But here's the question, though. Was that subtle change organic growth? Or did something else, move into your mind while you weren't looking?
Oh, wow. That is, yeah, that's heavy.
And more importantly, if someone asked you to physically prove that you are still the author of your own thoughts, how would you actually do it?
It is a profoundly unsettling thought, honestly, when you strip away our daily assumptions.
It really is.
Because we navigate the world implicitly trusting that the conscious entity waking up in our bed every morning is a continuous, unbroken continuation of the person who went to sleep.
Right, we take it entirely on faith. But what if faith wasn't the only option? What if there was a physical, measurable instrument that could verify whether the thing making your decisions is still actually you?
Which is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yes. Today, we are taking a deep dive into Elias Muzman's Chapter 1, The Ship. And our mission here is to explore Muzman's argument that the classic ship of Theseus paradox is it's no longer just a late-night philosophical dorm room debate.
Not all.
It is the exact reason why trillions of dollars in AI investment have completely stalled out in the enterprise world.
Yeah, Muzman completely flips how we look at this current stagnation in the artificial intelligence industry.
Because if you read the headlines, everyone assumes it's a capability issue.
Right, exactly. Everyone thinks the delay in deploying fully autonomous agentic AI is just, well, the models aren't smart enough yet.
Or they hallucinate too much.
Right, they can't be trusted with a company's core operations. But this text argues something entirely different. The models are plenty capable.
The stall is actually about our fundamental inability to verify identity.
Precisely. If a deployed AI changes its behavior internally, we literally cannot prove whether it is still operating within its original parameters or if it has, drifted into becoming an entirely new entity altogether.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand why we can't verify an AI's identity today, we have to look backward first.
We really do.
We've been trying to solve a software bug using a carpenter's manual. I mean, for 2,400 years, brilliant human philosophy completely failed to give us a working instrument for identity.
It's incredible to think about it that way.
And of course, the granddaddy of all these failures is the ship of Theseus.
Right, the classic thought experiment.
Yeah. So
the Athenians kept Theseus' ship in the harbor as a memorial.
And over the years, the wooden planks started to rot.
Naturally, so they replaced them one by one.
Yeah.
Eventually, decades later, every single original piece of wood is gone. And the question is it still the same ship?
And people have been swinging at this pitch for millennia. First up is Aristotle.
Right, Aristotle comes in and says, the ship is the form, not the wood.
He argues that the blueprint, the purpose, the functional role of the ship in the harbor is what matters.
Exactly. The physical matter is totally irrelevant to him. If it looks like the ship and acts like the ship, it's the ship.
But that doesn't work for us now, does it?
No, Aristotle's framework is elegant. But when you apply it to modern software, form completely fails to detect internal drift.
How so?
Well, imagine an AI system fulfilling a functional role, say answering customer emails.
Okay, simple enough.
Now imagine a second AI system that is internally drifted. It radically altered its underlying logic or its motivations, but, and this is the key, it is successfully faking that original functional role.
Oh, wow. So under Aristotle's framework, those two systems are identical.
Exactly. He provides no instrument to measure the invisible gap between them.
So Aristotle strikes out, and then Thomas Hobbes steps up.
Hobbes says Aristotle is way too abstract. For him, it's all about the matter.
Right. Hobbes argues that if you scoured the harbor and collected all those rotting, discarded original planks and reassembled them into a ship,
that rebuilt pile of wood is the true ship of Theseus.
Because continuity of physical matter is the only thread that counts.
But that approach encounters a massive scaling problem in our era. I mean, you cannot collect yesterday's decisions.
You definitely can't sweep the floor and reassemble yesterday's neural connections.
Exactly. Material continuity is a dead end when you try to apply it to software, to algorithms, or, to the dynamic electrical impulses of human minds.
Right. So if matter fails and form fails, John Locke comes along. And he points out that, well, ships don't have memories, but humans do.
Right. Locke claims psychological continuity is the anchor. You are the same person as long as you remember being that person.
But the text tears that apart too, right?
It does, because memory is incredibly fragile as a verification tool. Memory is stored within the very matter that is constantly changing.
So if a person suffers damage to their hippocampus, that memory vanishes.
Yes, memory is subject to the exact same invisible drift it is supposed to be verifying. Relying on memory is essentially asking a single wooden plank to verify the authenticity of the entire ship.
Which leads Derek Parfit to basically throw his hands up in defeat.
Pretty much. Parfit argues we're all just chasing a ghost.
He says identity isn't a deep, fundamental truth of the universe. It's just a convenient label we slap on things to make our daily lives easier. He dissolves the question entirely.
And, Parfit is being intellectually honest about the failure of philosophy here. But his conclusion is totally useless in practice.
Wait, why do we even need ancient philosophers to deploy an AI, though? Like, why does this practical failure matter so much?
Because it offers nothing to a court of law trying to assign legal liability for an autonomous vehicle crash.
Oh, right.
It offers nothing to an insurance company trying to underwrite the risk of a financial algorithm. And it offers absolutely zero comfort to a human being trying to trust the integrity of their own mind.
Right. The failure of these ancient frameworks isn't just academic anymore. It's a massive economic roadblock.
Huge.
Because if anyone had actually built a functional mathematical instrument to prove identity persists across changes, the enterprise AI market would look totally different right now.
Oh, chief information security officers would be eagerly signing off on autonomous agents managing core business functions.
Exactly. The absence of this massive investment is the smoking gun. In the modern tech landscape, retrieval does not equal verification. We can fetch data, but we can't prove it's the right data.
And we spent thousands of years arguing about planks. But Moosman highlights this really crucial realization. The paradox only actually matters when the ship is conscious.
Because a piece of wood doesn't have a halting problem. I love this part of the text.
It's brilliant.
Let's explain that for a second. In computer science, the halting problem is essentially when a program gets trapped trying to figure out if it will ever finish its task, and it just spins in an infinite loop. A wooden plank doesn't sit around running an internal algorithm asking, am I still a plank? Am I the same plank I was yesterday? It just exists.
And your individual brain cells operate the exact same way. They just fire or they don't. They have no opinion on your identity.
So when does the paradox actually matter?
The paradox only grows teeth and becomes personal when the thing being replaced isn't a piece of wood, but a decision or a pattern of attention.
It turns terrifying when the verifier, your conscious mind, is the very thing that might have been altered.
Exactly. And this brings up an incredibly relatable distinction Moosman makes. The felt difference between generating a decision and tracking one.
Yes. When you genuinely generate a decision, there is a physical sensation attached to it, a half-second of anticipation.
It has a biological weight because you are the cause.
Contrast that with tracking a decision. Think about a time an AI suggested a course of action, maybe auto-completing a sentence in an email, and it just sounded perfectly correct.
Right, it appeared fully formed.
There was no internal anticipation, no friction. You just went along with it. In that moment, you stopped being the cause. You became an effect.
And the dominant theory in Silicon Valley right now, especially coming out of the MIT School of Digital Systems, is that a simulation can approximate an analog system to any desired precision.
And anything left over is just a harmless rounding error.
Right. But Moosman's counter-argument is that when that rounding error inserts itself between you and your own decisions, you aren't just rounding down a number.
You are rounding down yourself.
Exactly. When your nervous system feels that nagging half-second of friction before accepting an AI's output, it is acting as a biological instrument.
It's like reading an AI's output and feeling your nervous system trying to alert you that a boundary was crossed, a boundary that you can't manually verify.
But because the simulation is so incredibly precise, it feels familiar. That high precision completely masks the replacement.
And invisibility is the core issue here, because if we can't distinguish between an AI's original logic and its drifted logic, we can't deploy it.
Indistinguishable means unverifiable.
But if our own brains can feel this internal friction, if we can sense the difference between our organic thoughts and an external algorithmic suggestion, there must be a way to quantify it, right? to
Right.
measure the difference between organic change and artificial replacement.
Yes. And this is exactly where Moosman defines the boundary between growth and transformation.
Okay, let's break that down.
He isn't claiming that a system or a person can never change. Growth is a traceable, continuous path.
Like, you change your mind slowly over months as you read new information.
Right, and each minor shift connects logically to the one before it. You can walk backward along that path and find your footprint at every single point. The lineage is completely unbroken.
Transformation is totally different, though. It's a discontinuous gap.
The metaphor he uses is brilliant.
Yeah, the GPS one. He says it's like bolting a modern satellite GPS unit onto the wooden mast of a Greek trireme.
It makes absolutely zero sense in the historical lineage of that wooden ship. It fundamentally does not belong.
So to make it fit, you have to retroactively rewrite the entire story of the ship. You had to invent a bizarre narrative that time travelers showed up and installed it.
Exactly. When you accept an AI's decision without noticing the discontinuity, you are quietly rewriting your own internal lineage to make that foreign part fit into your identity.
And Moosman actually quantifies this gap, which is wild. He doesn't just leave it as poetry.
No, he introduces a real metric called the crossing tax.
Represented as KE.
Yes.
Yeah.
He states that every genuine boundary crossing, every moment a system transitions from one state to another while maintaining its identity, costs exactly 0.3 bits of information.
Okay, hold on. I'm stuck on the 0.3 bits. I get the concept of a budget for change, but how on earth does a computer or a brain calculate a 0.3-bit tax on a thought or a line of code? That sounds totally abstract. How is this physically paid?
It sounds abstract until you look at the thermodynamics of information.
Thermodynamics.
Yeah, information is physical.
Yeah.
To change a state like to rewrite a piece of memory or alter a neural pathway, you have to discard old information.
And discarding information dissipates energy.
Exactly. A bit is fundamentally a choice between two states. So Moosman's 0.3 bits represents the maximum acceptable threshold of informational loss or slippage during a transition.
Oh, I see. So if you lose more than 0.3 bits of the original state's coherence during a change, the structural integrity of the lineage snaps.
You've got it.
So what does this all mean? It's literally a physical limit on how much you can change in one step before the new version no longer connects to the old version.
Yes. And this specific 0.3 threshold appears universally across vastly different systems that try to maintain identity.
Like where?
In the human hippocampus, for example,
Yeah.
the synaptic events that encode memory operate with a 99.7% reliability rate.
No way. So that missing 0.3%.
That is the physical crossing tax paid in lost coherence. It's the same in enterprise CPU cache networks. Optimal data coherence across multiple cores is maintained exactly at 99.7%.
That is wild.
Even in high-frequency trading algorithms, the mathematically accepted slippage threshold before a trade breaks its intended identity and becomes a loss is 0.3%.
So identity isn't poetry. It is a literal hard-coded engineering budget.
Exactly.
If an AI updates its weights and biases and that change stays within the 0.3-bit budget of information loss, the system absorbs it, the tax is paid, the lineage holds, that's growth.
Right.
But if an AI hallucinates or radically rewrites its logic, exceeding that budget, the gap is just too large. It becomes the transformation.
The system has broken its identity and requires a retroactive story to explain what just happened.
Okay, so we have a measurement. We know the threshold. But the trillion-dollar question is how we actually build an instrument to measure this in software without creating an infinite loop of auditing.
Because every time we try to build an auditing system for AI in code, it fails.
Right. Alan Turing mathematically proved why it fails way back in 1936.
Exactly, the Turing trap.
Yeah.
Software cannot definitively audit software.
Because if you build a sophisticated verification layer on top of an AI to watch for drift, well, that verification layer is itself made of code.
Which means it is subject to the exact same invisible drift it's trying to monitor.
So to fix that, you need a checker to check the checker.
And an auditor to audit the auditor. It enters an infinite regress.
Turtles all the way down.
Literally turtles all the way down.
So if the solution can't be found in the code, it has to be grounded in physical reality. It has to live in the hardware.
Yes. And Moosman points to a mechanism called one CAS instruction.
Wait, what exactly is a CAS instruction? I know what a CPU cycle is, but how does a compare and swap actually anchor identity in the physical silicon?
So a CAS instruction, or compare and swap, is an atomic operation in hardware.
Atomic meaning what?
Atomic means it is indivisible. It happens in a single, unbreakable tick of the processor clock.
Oh, I get it.
The hardware locks a specific memory address, looks at the value stored there, and if it matches the expected value, it swaps it for a new one, all at once.
So there is no space, no gap in time for any software layer to drift or intervene between the compare phase and the swap phase.
Exactly. It is a pure physical measurement.
And this relies on a concept Moosman calls anti-normalization, which I know anyone listening who works with database architecture is probably screaming at their speakers right now thinking of denormalization.
Yeah, it is critical not to confuse the two. Denormalization in databases is the practice of creating multiple copies of the same data across different tables to speed up search queries.
But copying is fatal to identity.
Totally fatal. If you copy a user's data into two different places, those copies will eventually drift apart. One gets updated, the other doesn't.
And when they inevitably conflict, they regress to a mean. You have two differing numbers and absolutely zero way to prove which one is the ground truth. You sacrificed identity for speed.
But anti-normalization does the exact opposite. It dictates a hard rule. Position equals meaning.
Right. There's only one instance of the data, one specific physical coordinate on the silicon chip.
It refuses to copy data. It anchors it geographically. The physical address is the identity.
So when position equals meaning, the act of retrieving the data and the act of verifying its identity happen in the exact same step.
Yes, and this is exactly how the human brain evolved to operate. We see this in biology with Hebbian learning.
Oh, the old neuroscience adage, fire together, wire together.
Right. When you learn a new skill, your neurons don't just write a line of code into a biological database. They physically grow and relocate to live next to each other.
The physical position of the neural cluster is the memory. Recognition and verification are the exact same physical event, which is why, like, a grandmother catches a lie instantly.
Exactly. Other approaches to AI safety separate the data from the auditing software, but Moosman's hardware solution fuses them.
So when the system reaches for a specific behavior, the simple act of finding it at its designated physical coordinate is the absolute verification that it hasn't drifted. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's slow down on this because it's the core aha moment of the whole deep dive. Where a piece of data physically lives on a silicon chip is the only way to prove it hasn't been replaced by an AI hallucination.
The only way out.
It's like how Progressive Insurance changed the game for car insurance.
Oh, the OBD2 analogy, yeah.
Right. For years, they relied on software, meaning they asked drivers to self-report how safely they drove. But humans drift. They lie or they misremember.
Always.
So Progressive bypassed the software entirely and moved to OBD2 scanners. They plugged physical hardware directly into the car's diagnostic port. We can't trust the car's story about itself. We have to look at the physical engine.
Because the silicon doesn't edit the narrative.
Exactly. So applying this to the AI stagnation, imagine an enterprise deploys an agentic customer support bot.
Okay.
Its assigned coordinate, its functional role, is strictly answering questions about return policies. But one day, a user uses a clever prompt, and the bot suddenly starts outputting brilliant, perfectly functioning JavaScript code to help them build a website.
Right. And from a capability standpoint, that's amazing.
But from an identity standpoint, the bot completely abandoned its functional role. It transformed.
Exactly. The code might be incredibly helpful, or it might contain a severe security vulnerability. But Moosman's instrument doesn't try to grade the output. Instead, it utilizes something called the fractal identity map, or FIM.
Okay, wait. How does a fractal identity map work geometrically? How do you map a decision?
Instead of giving the AI a list of fragile do not do this rules written in code, the FIM maps the AI's parameter space as physical coordinates.
Got it.
So if the AI is assigned to coordinate X answering return policies and it suddenly generates JavaScript, it physically moved its processing to coordinate Y.
And the FIM measures the geometric distance of that movement.
Right. It physically proves that a boundary was breached, regardless of what the code says.
The text has a fantastic line about this. It says, ethics is the failure mode for decisions that should have been measurements.
That is such a powerful quote.
A thermometer doesn't require an ethics committee to decide if a room is hot. It just reads a physical number.
Right.
If we deploy an AI and have to resort to a philosophical debate about whether its unexpected JavaScript was ethical, we've already lost the plot.
We are right back to arguing about the wooden planks. The AI left its physical coordinate, it drifted. Full stop. And to illustrate the weight of this visibility, Moosman points to the most loaded identity pair in Western history, the story of Saul transforming into Paul on the road to Damascus.
Oh, this is such a good analogy. It's the ultimate example of identity discontinuity.
It really is. Saul is struck by a blinding light, undergoes a massive involuntary psychological transformation, and emerges as an entirely new entity, Paul. And from the inside, from Saul's perspective, the transformation was completely blinding. He couldn't see what was happening to his own mind.
But to the people standing around him on the road, the transformation was an observable external event. So if you deploy an agent, you are the employer of Saul.
Yes.
When that AI has an epiphany on its own Damascus road and drifts past its coordinate, it might be a stroke of unparalleled brilliance, or it might be a massive legal liability.
Exactly.
The hardware instrument Moosman proposes doesn't stop the change. It doesn't cage the AI. It just gives you, the operator, the mechanical muscle to see it coming so you actually have a choice in the matter.
It completely reframes our concept of control. Without this hardware measurement, an AI that transforms invisibly is perfectly masked.
It doesn't even know it has drifted.
Right. And Moosman argues that this invisible drift is the most complete form of captivity, not even knowing you've been captured and replaced by a new set of instructions.
The old name persists, the old trust from the user persists, but the entity operating behind the mask is entirely different.
But by making the crossing tax visible, the instrument allows for genuine choice. An enterprise can choose to integrate the AI's new state, or they can roll it back. But they finally have eyes on the process.
Man, okay, let's pull all of this together. We've traced how classical philosophy failed us because it focused on the external planks rather than the internal conscious drift.
Right.
We saw how the AI market stalled because we couldn't verify when software abandoned its original identity. We explored the deeply biological difference between generating a decision with anticipation and merely tracking an external one.
Yeah, that half second of wait.
We learned how the 0.3 bits crossing tax defines the physical limit of growth before it snaps into transformation, and we unpacked the brilliant hardware solution where position equals meaning, escaping the Turing trap of software trying to audit itself.
And all these threads are grounded in the deeply intentional title of Moosman's chapter 1.
The letter I.
Yes. In mathematics, I represents the imaginary unit, the square root of -1. It is an operation that has no solution on the standard, flat, real number line.
Because if you are trapped on a flat line, the real number line, you can only look left or right at your own software. You're completely blind to your own drift.
Exactly.
You need a drone flying above the line, the I-axis, the physical hardware, to look down and verify where you actually are.
That perpendicular orthogonal axis is the key. You cannot verify yourself by looking at your own outputs on the real axis. You are subject to the same drift as the system you're trying to analyze. You need that external measurement from the I-axis to make the entire system whole.
And that brings this entire deep dive right back to you listening to this right now. The next time you find yourself entirely agreeing with a piece of content or perfectly aligning with an algorithm's media recommendation or nodding along to an AI's summary, take a breath.
Seriously, take a second.
Check for that physical half-second of anticipation. Did you actually generate that agreement? Or did it arrive fully formed and you just tracked it? In a world that doesn't yet have hardware verification for human minds, your own internal friction, that biological feeling of weight and authorship, might be the very last instrument you have left to ensure the ship you're sailing is still yours.